Hi everyone and welcome along. I'm really excited today because we're going to paint a lovely little bird splashing around in a bird bath. It's something we keep seeing in the garden, so I thought why not paint it? So grab your paints and let's get started.
Oh, I'm excited about this one. Okay, so how do we paint a bird bath? Well, first off, make sure your set square isn't covered in water. Oh dear. Right, I've got a piece of A5 paper, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the right angle to give me a few helpful sort of guides. So I'm going to begin by just drawing that little L shape on the page, and then I can make that into a line with a line coming out the top, and then I can find a right angle again and then just bring it across. I basically want an upright with two horizontals. For anyone who wants exact measurements, well, you know I'm not an exact kind of a person, but that's 1 3/4 inches, also known as just shy of 4.5 centimeters. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that as my guide to sketch in a plinth. So we need a sort of stem curved neck that's then going to come down into a base. So you can make this sort of whatever shape you like, but it's sort of like when we draw vases or plant pots of any sort. We can use curves and then more curves to make it into a lovely little base. So I think I'll leave mine at that, and then this top line here I will be a little bit more precise with my measurement. I'm going to make sure I've got an even broadness. Let's see, let's make the edge 3 centimeters. That's going to be really helpful, and then I'm just going to curve right round. I'm sitting right round here. And create a curve, which is going to be the edge of my bird bath. It's a rather fancy, ornate bird bath, this one, I think. So it's going to be a stone base, and then we need to have the actual bath of the bird bath, so curving that down. All of this pencil drawing, try to create it as lightly as possible so that when you come to do your painting it can be nice and faint but still visible. So I'm just going to match up the top half, and then we want a sort of fairly flat edge around the rim of the bird bath so that the birds can sit on the side. From that point, you know, you're very welcome to give it more of like a scalloped edge, or maybe we'll give it a bit of a, yeah, let's give it a bit of an interesting sort of scalloped edge like that. So I'm just sort of creating nice little extra curves within the curve. See, it's as simple as that to do, and then we can lovely. Okay, that's looking nice. And now I'm going to pop a little bird onto it. So let's have a little curve of a little oval potato shape, overlap that with another little shape, and suddenly we've got a bird. So I'm going to take a wing, follow that down, and then the legs right far back, and a little beak. Lovely. And I also would like to make sure I've got a few flowers and a few sort of vines. I like the idea of sort of having a few leaves sort of coming up the bird bath. I think that'll be rather nice. Some maybe just sort of coming up round the back. So I'm just placing in some stems, maybe some little circles to make sure I know that I'm going to place some flowers in there. Okay, so that's quite a bit of drawing, but well done. We're going to now give that, for me, a light rub out with the pencil so I can just make it a bit fainter and then we can get painting. So I've given that a good rub out with a putty rubber. If you're worried about not being able to see the lines now, what I recommend, rewind back a little bit, take a screen grab of the pencil line drawing, and then you can use that to print out and use as a guide. But for now, it's all about the painting. So I need some stone colours first off. Buff titanium is fantastic. Creamy kind of, well, it's a creamy cream colour. And it's going to be a very useful tone. But we need to make sure we've got light and shade. So I'm going to have a little bit of yellow ochre mixed up. I've got some Payne's grey here. Moon glow, which I think is going to be really beautiful for this. And a little bit of burnt sienna. I'm creating a sort of, I don't know, a sort of brownstone, warm limestone kind of bird bath. And I'm going to sneeze. bless me, bless you. Sorry, it's my automatic thing to say. Right, so let's go with some painting. Obviously we have got some flowers that are going to be in there, so I might actually just shrink down to a size 0 brush and go small, so I've got lots of control. So I'm going to go shape by shape, starting with my lighter colour first. Just fill that up, sort of fairly dilute. And I'm going to get some moon glow in there. Just edging it a little bit, but also picking up a few little bits of brown. I just want to create a nice rounded shape, and the way you do that is you focus on creating darker edges of your shape. So I'm just building it up slowly, and then I'm just going to drop in a little bit of Payne's grey, and I'm happy with that. So I'm just going to now build up each section by starting with some buff titanium. If you don't have buff titanium, you could use some like watered down, some diluted yellow ochre with a little bit of a cooler tone in it, which will get you that nice pale stone to begin with. But experiment with your colours, see what you come up with. That's the beauty of watercolour, is you might come up with something really lovely with a tone that you've got in your palette that I don't have. So let's go. So I've just been working my way down the bird bath, and it's interesting, I've made this observation of buff titanium. It's a really lovely colour, but it does sometimes feel a bit sort of too thick, almost sometimes, to do completely sort of seamless watercolour blends, just in case anyone else finds that. But it's kind of perfect, but I'm finding I'm almost getting like a hot pressed watercolour paper effect with some of the paint sort of moving about rather than seeping straight in, but I'm happy with it. So up top here we do want to make sure that the colours are just that bit lighter and brighter, because of course it's hitting the sunshine. So my sort of bleeds and blends are going to be a lot lighter. So I'm going to use some unpainted space, I imagine. But at the moment I'm just building up with buff titanium, and then I think a little bit of yellow ochre is going to be really nice just on the sides there. So I'm just using the size 0 brush still, finding that that's working really nicely for me. Yeah, and just making sure that I remember if I'm going to put a flower in somewhere. We're going to have water in the middle, so not to do too much in there either. Once we've got this, we just want to let it dry, and then we can start putting in our flowers. I've got a 2/10 brush, and I'm going to paint in some, I've got some dilute Imperial Purple here, which is a rather lovely colour. I'm just going to paint in a few flowers by creating some petals and then if you want, you get a little bit more concentrated version of that colour. Drop a tiny bit into the middle. So I'm going to paint in some flowers in the areas where I allowed for some space. So I'm just using these little shapes to create about a 5-petal pointed flower. And drop in some colour there. And now it's time to add in some leaves and some vines. I think because we've got purple, is a complementary colour to orange, and that makes me feel like I want to do some sort of quite yellowy green leaves and maybe even some orangey leaves. So I've got green gold here, and I think actually I need to go down a brush size. So I'm going down to size 2/10, and I want to create a sort of serrated edge leaf, and so the way I'm doing that is I'm starting with a single point and then building up the shapes around it, and I rather like that. And then I'm going to add in just a little bit of cadmium orange into one or two of those. It's drying very quickly today, so I don't have much time to bleed it in, but I might get another leaf in. Maybe a little bit of green in there. Lovely. So I'm going to just add in leaves around about the place with this clever little serrated edge technique. So central line, and then always make sure your little sort of extra brush strokes are always directed in the direction of the growth of the leaf, the point of the leaf. There we go. It's time to paint our bird, and I want to paint a sparrow because I never paint sparrows, and I think I mean in the UK anyway, they're everywhere, and I just think they never get a good look in. So I'm mixing up a sort of shadowy grey using buff titanium and a bit of the moon glow, and we've just put that on the chest there, and then we're going to start to build in a bit of colour by painting some burnt sienna little brush strokes on the wings, building up that colour, and then getting some of that much darker, more concentrated shadowy colour. And then up the sort of chest, the torso, underneath the beak, we get a bit of darker colour, and then quite a sort of strong brown on the side of the head, some gentle brown coming up the tail. And I like painting sort of quite simple birds like this in this simple style, just using brush strokes to create the shape. So we'll leave that there in the loose manner, and we're now at the stage where we've done a basic wash of almost everything. The only thing left is the water. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a bit of, I need a bluey tone. I think Prussian blue is a colour I've not used in a while, and it's a lovely slightly aqua aqua blue colour, which is what I'm going to begin with. I'm going to paint that in across the top there. And then I'm going to actually use some of the shadowy tones I had for the sparrow, just because of course the sparrow's reflection is in the water there. So I bring that from the bottom up. And actually, that is almost sort of all I need to do. I've got nice little bits of white unpainted space in the water for a tiny bit of a reflection. But what I'm now going to do is a bit of Payne's grey. I'm just going to bring in that little bit of extra darkness in the water there. Clean that brush right off and then just spread it a little. And I'm really happy with that. Okay, so now I'm at the point where everything's pretty much been painted in, and we'll just give that bird a tiny little bit more on the top of the head. But I'm now going to let everything dry and then go right down to my real little detail brushes and start to add some lovely bits of detail. So with detail, all I'm doing is I found concentrated versions of my colours, and I'm adding in sort of the little lines, some which are just sort of for sort of shadow, like those, but also some that are for decorative detail. So I've put a little sort of border on the bird bath, but you know, you could always add little marks like so. Just going to make sure you've got a clean brush, but also just remember it doesn't have to be lots, it can be very simple. And don't sort of get too bogged down in doing too much, because it'll sort of, you know, get a bit heavy, get a bit bogged down. But you can also add maybe sort of slight textures, a little bit of dry brushing like this. It's quite nice, so it's not like an actual carved detail, but it's just a little bit extra of a texture on the piece. Then we've got the leaves, so I can take some more concentrated sap green and maybe add in a tiny bit of Payne's grey too. Just make sure you've got a nice sort of thin coating of concentrated paint. And you could always add just a few little extra things if you wanted. You could also add, just thinking, where's my rigger brush? Here we are. Just a few little sort of tendrils as well. If you've watched my sweet pea wreath tutorial this week, then you'll know all about how good the rigger brush is for that kind of thing. Sometimes it's just nice to sort of mess around a little bit and not worry about being completely accurate, especially with plants and flowers, but sometimes it's just about creating a piece and getting a feel for it. And then on these flowers, just making sure my brush is clean each time, taking a little bit of the concentrated colour and maybe just adding a few extra little lines on the petals, or a few little buds here and there. To finish off the little bird, I've just got a little bit of Mars Black on the brush to add just a little bit of detail. And then some legs, just and some feet going down in the water. And maybe just a little bit of a shadow to finish off. So let's see. Obviously painting over the legs with a bit of shadow is going to sort of blur them a little bit, but not too much. And then, yeah, just looking for maybe a few spots where the shadow can just sit underneath the rim of the bird path. And there we have a lovely little bird on a bird bath.
Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that one as much as I did. I want to say a massive thank you to our patrons for their support, because that support enables us to keep creating videos like these that everyone can enjoy. And if you enjoyed it, then hit the like button and comment below to let me know how you got on with that one. And of course, if you never want to miss another video, then hit the subscribe button and the little notification bell, and we'll see you again next time. Bye!